Welcome to the Misophonia podcast. This is season 7, episode 28. My name is Adil Ahmad, and I have Misophonia. This week I'm talking to Taylor, project manager in California. Taylor talks about her home life and how growing up with an alcoholic parents may have contributed to her misophonia. She also discusses her hypersensitivity and how it affects her relationships. She shares her experience in school and the support she received from teachers along the way. She shares how she copes with triggers and the importance of supportive relationships. And Taylor also talks about seeking professional help and her experience with hypnotherapy. She highlights her passion for music and how it serves as a creative outlet. And we also end with some of the maybe more positive aspects, or I should say lessons, that can come from living with misophonia. After the show, let me know what you think. You can reach out by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or hit me up on Instagram or Facebook at Misophonia Podcast. By the way, please head over, leave a quick review or rating wherever you listen to the show, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever. It really helps us move up in the search results. A few of my usual announcements. Thanks for the incredible ongoing support of our Patreon supporters. If you feel like contributing, you can read all about the various levels at patreon.com/Misophonia Podcast. This episode is sponsored by my personal journaling app that I developed called Basil, B-A-S-A-L. Basil provides AI-powered insights into your journal entries and guides you with new writing prompts based on those insights. You can even explore many different therapy approaches and modalities. It's available for iOS and Android. Check the show notes or go to hellobasil.com. And just a little disclaimer, I noticed my microphone was a little hot during this interview, so I apologize in advance if there's a little bit of slight distortion in some sections. All right, now here's my conversation with Taylor. Taylor, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so jazzed.
Yeah. Likewise. Do you want to tell us kind of where you are, kind of what you do and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Like physically right now, well, I'm located in the Bay Area. You know, I'm in my room. My room is separate from the rest of the house, which is great.
Nice.
And I am a project manager. I'm a project manager for a company called Receipt. Has to do with there's a lot of commercial office furniture waste that's put into landfill. Not really something that people think about a whole lot, but you know, especially being in the Bay Area, there's a lot of tech companies around. And post-COVID, they're getting rid of furniture. I come in and I'm part of a company that buys it, sells it, all that, connects end users. And project management is a great position for, I guess since we're given the context of misophonia here, project management is great for that. I'd say my biggest hurdle is like if someone's got allergies on the day that I go to a job site or something and they're, you know, they've got the sniffles or whatever, but
right. Yeah. But it's probably, you're not like fixed in the same room every day, 9 to 5 kind of thing. You at least get to travel, and if someone sniffles, hey, you can drive home and scream as loud as you want in your car and just kind of get that rage out.
Exactly. You know what really helps? Do you have AirPod Pros in?
Yeah.
Are those pros? Those are amazing. Are, yeah. Are you aware of the feature where you can play background noise on your iPhone if you've got an iPhone?
Yes. I have a shortcut. If I hit 2 buttons on my phone, like it automatically turns it on.
That comes in so clutch. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So worst case scenario, I'll use that, and I put on the bright noise. I feel like because that kind of matches the frequency of the sniffling, you know, or mouth noises.
Yes.
I love the bright noise. Yes. It's great.
Yeah, you're right. I put brown noise in the back of the podcast because it's like more like a airplane kind of rain. But yeah, you're right. Like some noises are higher frequency, like sniffling, and so you might want to mask it with something a little harsher that you wouldn't want to necessarily hear all the time. So that's a good tip.
Exactly. Yeah, it's great. And there's like dark noise or balance noise. Mm-hmm. It's really helpful for when you're trying to match the trigger sound that's going on in the background. Mm-hmm. You know, like snoring helps, like dark noise helps with snoring for me,
Yeah.
you know,
Right, right, right. Very
in
cool.
whatever the
Okay, okay.
situations. Yeah. But that's what I do. Project management. It's great. And uh, school post COVID out of there, post COVID has been all online. So that's great.
Right, right. So
Personally, I
you
find that.
graduated? Are you in school, or was that
Oh my
just?
goodness. My academic journey has been so all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am getting my associate's degree after like 4.5 years in higher education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's something under my belt, and it
Yeah.
just took me a really long time to land on a major, to
Yeah.
find something that uh, I don't know. I guess my impression in my academic years was that you had to commit to the thing that you major in. You know,
Right.
a lot of
Right.
the time employers just want to see that you are going to college or have gone to college and you finished it and you did your
Right.
thing, um but yeah, getting that in May. Communications, easy
Mm-hmm.
peasy. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
So
Very cool. Yeah. You
yeah.
mentioned like where you are right now. You're literally your room is like separate from your house. Like how does that? Is it like floating on like its own kind of foundation, soundproofed everything, or is it just
Dude,
kind of like
that would be, oh, ideal. But it's it's kind of like an ADU,
hmm
like
with
a you know
oh okay
adult,
yes,
a
dwelling
thing
unit or
separate,
something.
or like a in-laws unit or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
heard that.
hmm
It's kind of like that. So
Cool.
there's the rest of the house. If I open my door right now, I'm in the backyard,
Oh,
and then there's
gotcha. Yeah.
the rest of the house. It's got a lot of room, which is nice,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Did you
yeah, I
choose
live at
that
home.
because you're like, ooh, that looks like I can live there and not go crazy?
Oh well, you know what? I
Area
live
is
with my
expensive, so I mean, you usually can't
dude,
like,
big
you can't
time.
really tell. I mean, sorry, you
Yeah,
can't really choose.
absolutely. I know it's crazy. I do live at home with my parents,
Oh, great.
and
Yeah,
so
that's easier.
I've moved out before, but I came back, and
Yeah,
the this used to be an office. Um, the wall is a little unfinished behind me and
I
whatever,
like that
but I
look.
mean,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah,
industrial, I guess. I don't
yes.
know. But yeah, I came back after I had moved out, and this was open. It used to be an
Yeah.
office. My dad used to work out here, but now they're all moved inside, and this
Okay.
is my spot, and it's great. It's separate from the house. I say the summertime is probably the noisiest because everyone wants to be outside, and like
Mm,
the radio,
right.
sometimes the muffled
Yeah.
sounds of the radio will,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ugh, but I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
c'est la
So
vie.
do they know about your misophonia? I'm assuming,
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Let's talk about that a
absolutely.
bit.
They know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. So I'm pretty open with my misophonia,
Mm-hmm.
and I've heard a lot of people on this podcast say that communicating with others about it is really important and really helpful. I have found that uh, that was kind of just like my natural instinct. Like I gotta let people know. I gotta ask people about it. Are you hearing what I'm hearing? At least in the beginning, that's how it was. Um, I'd be like, why is no one else hearing this right now? Like,
Right.
why is no one else reacting like me? But in terms of my family does know. I guess should I start with the origin or
Yeah, yeah. Why don't we go? Why don't we throw rewind? Yep, yep.
yeah, hit rewind. So like most people with misophonia, I started to experience it around age 10, 11, early adolescence. Um, and I guess at home with my family, my mom, she used to have the little tin of Altoids, mini Altoids, and she would dump like half of it into her mouth, and it
Okay.
was wretched. Like I
Yeah.
don't. That was just like her thing. Some people have like their thing that they do. That was her choice of like breath freshener, whatever. for me, it was torture. I remember like
Mm-hmm.
sitting in the back and like I didn't know what was going on, and I would be like um, squirming in my seat and like covering my ears, even like reacting vocally to, or like screaming, squirming. And in the beginning, it was very difficult for my family, for sure, because they
Your
didn't know what was going
reactions
on.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I didn't know what was going on. It was just like my natural reaction. That's the first thing I'm gonna do. I hear the sound. I go into fight or flight, and I'm sitting there squirming uh, very obviously, not just like a little
Yeah.
twitch or a little whatever. It was very like, if I didn't know what was going on either, I'd be like, what the hell is going on with my kid?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what am I
Yeah.
doing? What's going on? Um, and so, yeah, I can remember that being one of my first triggers as a kid. My mom eating Altoids and crunching and slurping and smacking on them. A nightmare. And uh, let's see. I suppose when I remember there was one time I had my computer and I was, you know, I looked up, why do I hate the sound of eating noises or whatever?
Yeah.
And up came Misophonia. And as soon as I gave my family the name, they were like, oh, you're not just making this up. Like, oh, you don't just want attention. Like, okay,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
real. For sure. Okay, something to pay attention to.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, there
Sometimes
was
it takes
more of
that
that.
label. When was that? Was
Exactly.
that since 2011 or so? Since, it was
Yeah,
kind of out there
like,
more. Yeah.
yeah,
Must have been.
absolutely. It was around
Yeah.
2011, 2012
Yeah.
ish. Like I was um, probably, yeah, around 10 when I experienced it, and about a year into having it, that's when I looked it up and we put a name to it. And then it was like,
Hmm.
okay, you know,
Did they
um,
start to change? Did your mom kind of stop the Altoids, or
oh,
did you
yeah.
just go to another
I
room?
mean, it was kind of difficult. She wanted her Altoids in the car. Uh,
Yeah.
and every time we got in the car, she would sit like, I think she had a little bit more of a difficult time adapting to it,
Hmm.
or uh, taking action on implementing accommodations in the very
Hmm.
beginning. I like, she knew what was going on, but I don't think she really like grasped how viscerally I was feeling this reaction,
Hmm.
how it just overtakes. Like, I think if you're missing that piece as a parent, or if you are not missing that piece, then you can more easily accommodate. But if you're just like, oh, you just don't like the sound, then all right, well, I'm going to do it anyways. I'll just let you know that I'm going to do it. And that's what she did. She would be like, hey, I'm going to eat my Altoids now. And I would sit there like covering my ears. I'd be
Gotcha.
like, okay, you know. That's how a lot of that was, I would
How
say.
did it evolve then? Like, did it go to get to your other family members and other sounds and?
You know what? I would say that it didn't really start with my family. I would say it started
Ah.
like in fifth grade at school.
Ah. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and when it came to my family, though, it was I'd say my oldest sister first. She's just a
Hmm.
loud eater. She eats loud, and she was eating chips. And I remember thinking, like, what? Okay, come on. Like, it
Yeah.
was a little.
Yeah.
It was like, can you relax, please? Like,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
hurting. So that then it was my mom, then like my dad occasionally. I'd say the family. I'd never thought about who was it first, with my family
Hmm.
specifically, but it was kind of just like all of them
Yeah.
gradually, it's bound to
Right. Right. Right.
happen. Yeah.
And what was going on at home? Was it pretty chill at home, or any kind of like unusual situations or anything around that time? Or
uh I'd say, like, you mean about my home life
yeah, home life
in particular,
basically. Yeah.
maybe in correspondence with my experience with
Exactly,
misophonia.
in parallel, like,
Yeah,
sometimes there's, difficult, things that we all go through,
there
so
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, my family has always
sometimes it's
definitely
just
been.
dysfunction. Sometimes,
Yes. Oh my
so.
gosh. All the time. Yeah, my family has always been a little chaotic.
Mhm, mhm.
Um I would say, I don't know how vulnerable I I want to get, but I mean,
Just
obviously I'll
whatever
share
you
what I'm
want.
comfortable
Yeah,
with.
yeah.
But
Right.
um, I guess, uh, yeah, my parents. I grew up with alcoholic parents for
Mm-hmm.
sure,
Mm-hmm.
and alcohol. I don't really have a good experience with it.
Right.
Some families can have that or have that in the house, and it's not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for us, it was definitely. It was always being drank with every meal by my parents, and
Mm.
every time we went out to dinner or whatever, which was already a challenge in itself. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, there were a lot of altercations. I would
Gotcha.
say
Yeah, yeah.
I always had this. I mean, nothing like crazy violent,
Mm.
but
Yeah, yeah.
definitely like as a child did not feel like comfortable,
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah.
or safe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think that's definitely something that contributed maybe to my misophonia. At least for me, through my lens, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll just say you're not the only one who's had the similar kind of, and I'm sure people
Yeah,
without misophonia too,
yeah,
and it's not necessarily turns into anything, but it's an interesting
sure.
common kind of thing that comes up, and
I know,
yes,
right? Yeah,
natural for a kid to kind of feel like natural for a kid's brain that's still developing to kind of
yeah,
start to make connections, and so I was curious. There hasn't been enough research done about this, but it's something that I feel like some dots that might be able to be connected. So I always like to ask
absolutely.
whatever people are comfortable
Yeah,
sharing.
right.
So
No, I feel like tumultuous situations, or the brain copes with tumultuous situations in very different ways. Some people
mhm.
might develop anxiety, some, some of this, some of that, whatever, the whole,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
combination. Or maybe you might have a little bit of everything. And for me, obviously, anxiety
Hmm.
was a hand in that, but maybe
Right.
misophonia was a way that my brain felt like it could be adversely aware of my environment, and or it's a control
A
based
warning
thing,
signal too. Yeah.
yes, exactly. And I will say for sure, in relation to the chaos in my home, and related to my parents being alcoholics, they don't drink anymore, but uh and me, that connection, I guess, um my brain kind of just, I'm having a hard time putting my words together, I'll be honest. It
Yeah.
was
Take your time.
like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of lost that one. Lost my train of thought on that
Yeah,
one.
we can come back to that if it comes
But
to
I
you.
would
No
say,
worries.
yeah, that connection was
Yeah.
was made, I guess. You know?
Hmm. Hmm. And speaking of other thing like anxiety, HSP, highly sensitive person, you kind of identify with that as well. A lot of us consider ourselves kind of highly sensitive in general. I'm
Oh,
curious
yeah,
if things like that or other like comorbid diagnosable conditions were
yeah,
part of your past or and
for
present.
sure. Yeah, definitely like hypervigilance. Is that the right word? Or
That's definitely one.
hypersensitivity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hypersensitivity. Yeah,
yeah. I definitely,
just being able to
definitely
read the
experienced
room and
that.
kind of sense emotions of other people like very, very strongly.
Hyper aware, hyper aware. Absolutely, that's definitely
Which is
something
good if
that.
you're a project manager or any kind of manager
No, oh my
to
gosh, it's so good.
to some level.
Yes, yeah, definitely being able to match the client's energy or whatever
Right,
situation I'm in, and being adaptable, I think
right.
maybe is another way to put that. But
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, hypervigilance is a really big part of my life. Uh, it's definitely a double edged sword, you know. Like
Yes.
it can be a really good thing, and also kind of, maybe, at least in my experience, I will start to perceive things that aren't really there, or
I
someone's
feel like
about.
I'm doing that too sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
You
maybe
feel that?
over analyzing or being over vigilant. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Over analyzing. That's a good word. Um, yeah. Especially in my intimate relationships, you know, or my current relationship too. There's definitely moments where I'm like, what's going on? Da, 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 da.
Right.
Or reading
Right.
something. I'm like, your face looked different when you said that, or your energy shifted. And he's like, a lot of the time I'm pretty spot on, but every once in a while, if I'm more sensitive or worked up about something else or experiencing anxiety with something else, I might read into things that don't need to be read into, you know?
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I have a question. Have you had Martha Johnson on here?
Marsha Johnson, of course. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. She was
Marsha.
Marsha Johnson. Yeah, she was one of the first like 10 people or 12 people. Yeah.
Yeah. I bring her, she's the one who diagnosed me with
Mm.
misophonia officially in June 2021. And this was part of the conversation. She asked me, she was like, what hypervigilance, have you heard of this, or
Yeah.
OCD? And we talked about these other disorders that um, people with misophonia also experience in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's definitely something that comes
She
up.
is, yeah, I mean, she has talked to a lot of people with misophonia, obviously. So yeah,
Yeah,
she's seen a lot of the different patterns, and that's definitely one of them is a hypervigilance. So that's cool that she
absolutely.
asked that because, yeah, she's definitely aware that it's not just about sounds.
Yeah,
There's other stuff that comes with it. So, and
yeah,
even if she can't
exactly.
do something about those things, it's just good to be aware of it, like,
Right.
so it kind
Yeah,
of explains
absolutely.
things about your reactions in general to life
Yeah,
stuff. So,
totally.
do you,
Um,
yeah, go on. Mhm.
there was just something that came up, I guess, because you were asking about maybe my home life or
Mm.
things like that. But the thing that comes to mind is uh, my parents always told me when I was a kid that I was very, very, very picky about how things were done, in what way they were in what way they were done. If my sock wasn't on straight, it was like a sensory thing for me.
Hmm.
I would freak out if I could feel the seam of my sock on the side of
Yeah,
my toe. You know
right.
what I'm talking about? I would freak
Yeah.
out.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
like it had to be done a certain way.
Totally agree. And actually, that brings up like visual triggers. And like, do you find with music and use? Yeah, you also got the visual triggers as well.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom, uh, she suffers with psoriasis on her scalp,
Yep.
and so she picks at her hair a lot. And this motion, or if her hand goes up like this, it I can't, like, I
Uh
have to look
huh.
away. It
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
shocks me for a second. I'm like, oh my goodness. Or pointing sometimes. If someone leaves their finger up like this,
Mm-hmm.
so me
Oh,
doing it in
gotcha,
front of you, I
gotcha.
don't know
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you
No,
do you have
it's actually cut off from the frame, anyways.
Oh,
But it's all
good.
good.
Okay.
But I don't. But
Good.
yeah, I don't think it would bother me as much as perhaps you. But I totally understand.
Sure.
And because yeah, I mean, yeah, the sock thing too. Yeah, no, I can. Because I think that misophonia is and visuals. I mean, I tell people I feel like misophonia is hearing is one of the symptoms of maybe a wider issue that misophonia actually is, and I think
That's such a good point.
it's about all the senses, and I feel like
Right.
hearing is the hearing is like the hardest thing to block because you can't just completely block hearing. You can close your eyes and not put that sock on, but it's hard
Right.
to block hearing, and I feel like that's kind of the first line of defense,
Absolutely.
and so it totally makes sense to me that your senses would kind of like cascade into being extra sensitive
Yeah.
about certain
That's such a good
things.
point. Oh my gosh.
So
I've never heard that before.
yeah, just stuff I make up
Yeah.
on the podcast, but it's but I've said it enough times that I'm like, yeah, I don't know, yeah, I think there's more to it than just sound. And even Marsha Johnson, who's an audiologist, I mean, she says that multiple times that there's more going on than just sound. So
Absolutely. That's a great
hopefully,
point.
yeah, hopefully with more research we'll figure that out. And
Yeah.
you said, I mean, going back to like you said like something of fifth grade, like it was kind of your mom and then school. Like, yeah, I was curious, kind of like school and friends. What was
Oh
going on
yeah.
there?
Yeah, let's talk about that. I can remember the name of the guy who first triggered me in school. His name was Keishan. Shout out Keishan. He's a great guy. such a sweetheart. I remember we sat next to each other and we had a seating chart that did not
Mm-hmm.
change the entire year. And he unfortunately has still, I say has because we ended up going to high school together, and I'm just assuming as an adult that he still has this really bad allergies. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess his thing that he had to do was he had to sniffle a lot. And I
Uh,
mean, like, really hawk it back too, like, really get in there.
yeah, yeah.
And I remember sitting there, like, oh my God, is looking around the room, like, is no one else hearing this right now? Like,
Right,
isn't that
right.
crazy? And so our thing throughout the school year was like, do you need a tissue? I would sit down and I'd be like, how is it today, Keishan? You know what I mean? And he'd be like, it's a rough day today. The pollen count is pretty high
Okay,
today.
yes,
Like,
yes.
you know, and so it kind of became like a joking thing a little bit,
Right,
but
right.
he was, I think, one of the first people to show me what it looked like to be receptive
Empathetic. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
empathetic and understanding, and to hear what I said and be like, that makes sense. Like, you know, I didn't even have the name for what I was
Mm-hmm.
struggling with, but I just told him, like, hey, man, this makes me feel really bad inside. Like, can you please try and get a tissue or do this or whatever? And he would genuinely do his best, you know? And
Yeah.
that, honestly, maybe, and I know this is a pattern between people with misophonia, is when you express it to somebody and they are receptive to it, it makes it a lot easier to have
Mm-hmm.
a um, threshold. You know, your
Right.
threshold kind of widens, I guess, is the, I don't know if I phrased that correctly, but yeah, your tolerance with that person is easier, you know?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's because I think it's the whatever your part of your brain has assigned a threat to Keishan. He's if he's receptive, threat level DEFCON 5 goes down. Like so.
Exact, exactly.
um because it's what it's the fight or flight. It's like we've that part of our brain is which has been hyper vigilant looking for danger.
Mm-hmm.
uh Initially was like we need to take Keishan out, is now like Keishan's cool.
Okay, he can
So
stay.
cooler,
Yeah,
so
right. Exactly, exactly.
yeah, that's cool. Do you know if he kind of like heard about, I don't know, maybe not misappointed, but had he kind of heard something like that before, and maybe he was used to it, just kind of how he is.
I think that was just how he is. I remember throughout
Yeah,
high school, he was just very like, just a chill guy, you
yeah.
know, kind of just nice to everybody, kind of thing.
And then in otherwise in school, like, were you able to get out okay in terms of like taking tests and all that, and
Oh man, I'm pretty sure my school days were spent just like everybody else, especially the early days. A lot of people with misophonia maybe just plugging one ear
oh
at
yeah,
your desk if you couldn't have headphones in, or if you have misokinesia, kind of blocking your vision at the desk, like,
right, right,
and staring at the clock, like waiting for that bell to go off so you could get out.
right.
A lot of my teachers, like I said, I was pretty open about it. Um, and I believe in middle school, I might have been too shy to say anything. And I don't really
Mm-hmm.
remember any teachers like I talked to about it. And they were like, oh, wait, I just remembered. Yeah, eighth grade, Miss Schlommen. Shout out, Donna? What's her name? Diane?
Let's go,
Anyways,
Donna.
yeah, let's go with that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was Diane, actually, but whatever.
yeah. Let's go,
Um,
Donna.
sure, Donna. Schlommen. That's her last name.
Schlamen, that's
Um,
the important thing. Yeah.
yes. Uh, I told her about it. She was so sweet. She was extremely receptive to it. And I think she really opened the door for me to communicate that to my teachers more. Like, oh, I can use communication as a tool to cope, you know? I can let people know what's going on. And so if I need to do what I need to do for myself, like go outside for a couple minutes, like that's a little unofficial accommodation she made, was if I just raised my hand and pointed to the door, I could go outside. Or we weren't allowed to chew gum in class, thank God, but she would slip me a piece if I wanted a sensory experience. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She met me with some empathy there, and
Yeah.
that was really meaningful. And throughout high school, until my junior year, I was communicating with my teachers and telling them what was going on. It worked out. A lot of teachers just let me wear earbuds.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one time I told them I was listening to white noise, but a lot of the time I was listening to music. One time my music was a little loud, and this student looked over at me, and he could hear my music, I guess. He looks at me and he goes, or whatever, holds up a rock on sign. I'm like,
Right.
okay. But anyways, there was a teacher in sophomore year. She was from Australia. Not important to the story, but she told me that she was going to have me prove that I had misophonia. She was like,
That's such an Australian thing to say.
is it? She was,
No, I'm
she
just
was,
kidding.
oh my goodness. She said, something like, well, Taylor, I'm not going to believe you unless you have a panic attack right in front of me.
That is a really good Australian accent.
Oh, thank
Could
you.
I just say that? Yeah.
I work on it. Thank you. But she said that, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the office knows that I have this. Like,
yeah.
can we get somebody in here? Eventually, It ended up being fine. And then, junior year of high school, I had a teacher who when I communicated this to, she said, why don't you get accommodations? You know, in California, you can get, maybe this is a thing in other states. Maybe I'm not aware. Is it?
I think it's a
504
national
plans?
thing. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
Amazing.
if it's. I mean, you can get it through ADA, which is obviously national.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I've heard. Yeah, it's 504 stuff from many different states. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, she was like, why don't you go get accommodations? Just tell them what's going on. This is a pretty real thing. Obviously, there's a name for it and whatever else. And I did that, and I got accommodations, and it made the rest of my high school experience so much easier.
Very
And
good. Yeah.
in college as well, first few years doing that, you know.
Did your parents have to help with that, or did you just kind of like? It sounds like you kind of like were pretty proactive.
Yeah, my mom was happy to step in.
Cool.
She had a more difficult time on the personal level of it. Sometimes I think she kind of was feeling like, why are you making me feel bad for something that I just can't do, or can't help but do, you know, like throat clearing or eating or something like that.
Right.
But she was happy to step in, you know, if I needed help in academics, and if I had needed accommodations to be able to do what I need to do, you know, then
right,
that wasn't an issue.
Yeah.
And I guess another tidbit about that, when I got accommodations, that same teacher who told me to get them told me that there was a teacher next door who also has misophonia. And that was so cool.
Okay.
This was a AP Lang and composition class, and we would have times where we had to be writing essays for 30 minutes or whatever it was. And when the room was quiet, I could hear everything. Not ideal.
Right.
And this teacher let me go into the other teacher's classroom because she had an off period. And I go in there, and she's like, so what are you doing in here? And like, you just need like a quiet space to write your essay? And I said, yeah, well, I have this thing, misophonia. I heard you have it too. And she got so excited. She was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
She's like, thank you. Oh my God, you understand what I'm saying. And da-da-da.
It's tough for teachers, so I'm sure she gets excited. I hear from teachers all the time. And it's, yeah.
How do they do it?
I don't know.
Especially with kids, I guess. Maybe they might not be as receptive to it. And I got that confirmation after I learned that she had misophonia. I was in another class on a different day, and this kid at my table group, he said, God, Miss da-da-da, such a, like, called her a B word, and said that
Ooh,
Ooh,
no.
B word. And and
A
he said
bum.
that
She called her
a
a bum.
bum. Yeah. Um she's such a bum. She doesn't let she doesn't let us eat in class. That's what he
Uh-huh.
said. And I was like, "Oh, well she has what
You
I
did the
have."
rock on symbol.
Yeah, right. I
Yeah.
was like, but um this kid was complaining about this teacher with misophonia who didn't let her students eat in class.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like kind of making fun of her. He's like,
Mm.
he said, yeah, whenever she hears bags crumpling, she freaks out. It's hilarious. We kind of, whatever. And I was like, oh, dude.
That's why it's rough for teachers, man.
Yeah.
It's
Like
yeah.
they have students that just like do it on purpose, that like to push their buttons, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Ugh, I
Yeah.
can imagine that being so tough.
One day we'll get those kids suspended, but that's another.
Hey, we'll table that for now. It's in the
Yeah, yeah,
queue.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the queue. Um, but what about I don't know, other than Keishan, like your other friends and stuff, like when you meet people, how are they? And maybe we can kind of settle into like relationships and stuff. But how
Yeah,
has it been, kind of like socially?
absolutely. Honestly, people that I meet or friends that I have like don't give me a hard time at all. If they
Nice.
do, it's like, okay, well then I just won't hang out with you then. Like, okay. Um but
Little auto filtering that doesn't
exactly,
hurt.
it's like, okay, well, you're not going to be
Yeah.
receptive to it. That's cool, you know.
Right. Right.
Um now I know. My friends definitely were some of the first people, along with Keishan, our patron, to
Yep.
show
Yep.
me empathy and to show me what it means to like care and love for someone, to be understanding and to accommodate with no questions asked.
Pretty
Like,
novel idea here.
right? Oh my god, crazy. Um, but yeah, my best friend Ileana, she's great.
Hmm.
I can remember I would tell her, she would clear her throat a lot. She still does sometimes. Um, and she was the first one to be like, "Oh, okay. How about I can tell you when I'm going to. Does that help?" And she was very curious. People who approach with
Mm.
curiosity have always
Hmm.
been some of my faves.
Hmm.
Um,
It's great.
Recently, I did have kind of a weird experience. I have been becoming friends with this girl. She's such a sweetie. But we're over at her house, and my boyfriend and I, and we're over at her house with her partner as well. And I'm telling her about it. We're having a separate conversation, but I'm telling her about it. And she's like, "Oh," like really ex- expressive. I don't know if that was just her way of
Shocked. Yeah.
reacting or whatever.
Yeah.
But she seemed really confused by it. And I was like, "Oh, I hope this goes well." Like, you know, thinking to myself, like, okay,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
um, maybe it was the way I was explaining it, but I don't know. In the past, I feel like when I explain it as just like a sensory issue that I
That's how.
usually say
That's kind of
like,
your pitch. Yeah.
yeah, that's my pitch. I'm like, I have a sensory issue, particularly with sounds, and this is what I need to accommodate. Like, if
Yeah.
you see me put my earbuds in, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just listening to white noise. I
Yep.
still want to engage, or I know what I need to do. I get up and I'll leave for a little bit. It's not personal. And a lot of people will just be like, okay, cool. Like, thanks for telling me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, but she was very like, oh, kind of
A little
furrowing
bit
her brows a
judgy.
little bit, a
Yeah. Yeah.
little,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, almost like I don't want to speak for someone or say how someone else felt when I don't really know. But she seemed a little weirded out. But that's okay. You know, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. We'll see how it
I'm
goes. We'll see if
yeah,
she's a bum or not about it.
exactly. Exactly. Thank you.
So,
That's a good word.
but we'll be optimistic. We'll be optimistic.
Exactly. She's a nice person, so I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's
But
your?
yeah.
How do you? I mean, in terms of day to day, like how do you deal with this? You got some nice headphones there.
Oh yeah, the
You have a
Bose.
job where you can kind of move around
Yes.
with and you use the white noise on your phone.
Yes.
Anything else? I don't know. Are there other kind of tips that you've come up with? There
Ooh.
aren't really a lot of novel ones, but you know.
I mean, music
Yeah.
is a huge one, and I'm sure I've heard people on this podcast talk about how big of a thing that is for them. Heard a lot of
Hmm.
musicians come on here. You had a musician on here recently.
A
Um,
lot of creative people who have misophonia.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I make music. That's my thing. That's an outlet. Keeping myself busy, making things with my hands. Crocheting is a big thing. Also, lifestyle changes have been extremely beneficial, like
Hmm.
eating right and getting enough sleep. If I don't get enough
Yes.
sleep and I'm crabby in the morning, I'm probably going to be really sensitive all day, you know?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Um, Other than that, it's always been headphones. Um, that was my first, and that's my tried and true.
Hmm.
My buddy through life is Bose QC45s. They're great.
Those are the QC45s you have on right now. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you've
Yeah.
heard.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're
You've got
great.
the 20s and the 30s and but those are the PC45s are currently the flagship
They're
Bose noise
amazing.
canceling, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah, they're
Yeah,
great.
I've also got the Sony equivalents, which are I can never tell which are better, or they're
I
all
know. I was
great,
going
but
between those two. I've seen a lot
yeah,
of support pages too say Bose and the Sony ones, and I was going
yeah,
between. I might have just picked the Bose because of the color. I honestly don't remember,
yeah,
but it
yeah.
seemed like they did the same thing.
At that level, it's pretty much the same. You're kind of at the epitome of noise
Yeah, I'm
cancellation.
like, how good this can this really get? Like,
Yeah,
you know. So
right.
yeah.
No, that's cool. And Have you, I mean, have you seen? I'm curious. Have you even tried, other than Marsha Johnson? Have you tried to see any other professionals about it, or has it been
Oh
kind of
yeah.
self-directed?
Oh yeah. So I say maybe early high school. Uh, my mom was the one who was really curious about seeking professional help because she really
Hmm.
needed a hand in understanding. Uh, we, oh my gosh, I'm just now remembering. I guess I've just forgotten all this. Thank you for asking. That's a great question. Um, Tim, what's his name? Todd? Do you know?
Tom Dozier.
Tom Dozier. Yes,
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
spoke with him. We reached out to him a really long time ago, and he was kind enough to give us a call. And yeah, we spoke about this, and he explained it. I think he was the one to explain it to my mom to be like, this is a real thing. This is fight or flight.
Hmm.
This is something that's going on in the brain. There's nothing wrong with your kid. It literally feels like she's being shocked or tased or something like that. Um,
Right.
and yeah, beyond that, we also went to an audiologist. We didn't know. I think this was probably before we were told that it was more of a brain
Hmm.
thing instead of a hearing thing.
Hmm.
Um, and they were like, "Yeah, there's nothing wrong with your hearing." Kind of hit us with the dead end there, but then we were
That's a
soon to
very
run.
common path, though, a very natural path
Yeah, right. You
of
figure
exploration. Yeah.
absolutely. Um, and then we've even tried hypnotherapy.
Ooh.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
yes. And I was pretty hopeful about it until I found out that the sessions were going to be performed online with a woman in
Oh.
Amsterdam.
Okay.
So I don't, I was not going into it with a very optimistic mindset to begin with. So
Yeah.
I'm just like laying in bed with my headphones on, listening to this woman over a phone call that would
Oh,
occasionally
you're
break
not
up.
even looking at her.
It was
It's
like, I think it was like over Skype or something, and I would
like
have
you, her,
my
and the Bose.
yeah, yeah, it was. And we would sit there, I think, with the camera on me or something while I'm laying
Okay.
down. It's just uncomfortable to
Weird.
begin with.
Yeah, yeah.
Not very effective. Maybe did 2 sessions. You know?
And did you go under, quote unquote, and kind of like stuff come up, or what happened in the session?
No,
No.
I sat there with my eyes closed.
Okay. Okay.
I count.
Yeah.
I did the 10. You walk down 10 sets of stairs, and I went to my happy place. But that was it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There was
Uh-huh.
nothing where she
Yeah.
was like, "I'm gonna snap my fingers and you're not gonna do this, this, and that." It was
Right.
nothing like that. We didn't get to that point, you know. Um,
Was she known for misophonia, or was it just a some kind of a hypnotherapist in Amsterdam?
I think she was known for misophonia.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah,
they have a kind of some research facilities there, um,
absolutely. Yeah,
so it's kind of a known place for misophonia stuff.
totally. I'm sure it would have been way more effective in person. I'm open to that kind of stuff. Um, for sure. I think the brain can be easily swayed.
Yeah,
You had someone on here named Krista.
yeah,
Uh,
she's coming. I'm talking to her again tomorrow. She's coming on.
really?
Then I'll have her episode. I think go on right after yours, sometime
Oh,
in March.
nice.
So,
Oh my
yes,
gosh.
she's coming
I
back on.
loved her episode. How she talked about misophonia and
Mm-hmm.
her experience with it. I just, it, a lot of it resonated with me. And
Mm-hmm.
since I've heard it, since it came out, I've been trying to implement uh, hints of what she was talking about, right? Um, like, one of them is a bit more obvious, I guess, than a regular coping strategy, but it really is just being like, no, I don't want to feel this right now. My brain is
Mm-hmm.
making this my brain's making this up right now, or
Mm-hmm.
there's really no threat, and it takes practice reassuring yourself, and it's really discouraging, when you first try it, but since implementing her sort of approach with it, taking it more face value as opposed to making it more, maybe I'm kind of relaying this a little bit incorrectly, but facing it head on,
Mm-hmm.
soothing
Mm-hmm.
yourself through the experience, trying to get your place, get your nervous system to regulate. Um, that's been extremely helpful. I can be
Yeah,
in the
that's
same
great.
room as my sister when she's eating. Not the chips one from early childhood, but
Right, right.
another one.
No, she's a lost cause. But the yeah, the self soothing. Yeah, I do that too. It definitely helps if, well, at least for me, because maybe I just need to practice more. But the earlier you can start that before a trigger,
Yeah,
or especially if you know that like it's not going to last a long time, like if it's just a meal and it's not some open ended
right,
triggering situation, like being
right,
trapped in a
right.
car on a long road trip kind of thing.
Nightmare. That's a nightmare. But
Um, how about yeah? I mean, how about relationships? You mentioned something about kind of it maybe being an issue or not being an issue, or
yeah,
how have you kind of approached that with people?
yeah. Well, luckily, I've run into people who have been very receptive, very understanding. My current boyfriend, I talk about this like I've had like 90 million partners here. I've had three. All three have been fantastic. The one I'm with now, definitely more like long term.
Mm-hmm.
Whoop, whoop. Um, but the first time that I told him over dinner, I was having a hard time at
Mm,
in a restaurant. There was just someone whose S's were really
mm,
prominent. Like,
yeah.
that's one of my,
Oh
I
yeah.
can't, obviously. And I was just having a really hard time sitting comfortably. And I told him what was going on. I told him what it was. And the first thing he said was like, thanks for telling me. Cool. All right. What do you need? Like, you need
Yeah.
headphones? What do you, and immediately was just very, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Collaborator or like a
yeah,
true partner. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
dude, right? It makes such a difference. I couldn't imagine having someone that wasn't at least willing to explore ways to make me feel more comfortable, you know,
Right.
which
Right.
unfortunately a lot of people have experiences with,
Right.
especially if they have a partner that just takes it really personally or
Mm-hmm.
whatever else. Um, and yeah, I mean, I would say it's not really that big of an issue, but recently it has been. We've been together for almost 2 years. And recently, like as time goes on, he does start to trigger me a little bit more,
Yeah.
like with mouth
That's natural. That's normal.
noises,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. mouth noises for him, or sometimes he breathes really deeply through his mouth when he's sighing, but he'll inhale through his mouth, the air will pass through his teeth in a way that makes a sound that I just don't. I can't.
Yeah.
It makes me flinch, you know, like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
that.
That makes. I mean, that's very common for things, especially as after a relationship starts to kind of start picking more stuff up. But
Right.
if you can kind of like keep that open attitude, then
Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully that'll get that DEFCON 5 threat level in your brain from
Exactly.
from
Exactly.
going off. So
Exactly. He's definitely receptive to it, but I can tell there are some times where I might have a reaction and he's like, oh, I'm just breathing. Like, I just breathed. Like, I can't, or I don't want anyone ever to feel like I can't, I have to be hyper aware of myself around you. And that was
right,
definitely
yeah,
an
that's a bit of a
experience.
spiral. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, that was definitely an experience that I had with my
Mm-hmm.
family. I think, especially in the very beginning or the first few years, even after hearing the name and getting some validation behind it,
Right.
the personal element never really went away. And even with the most receptive people, like my best friends, like my boyfriend, there are some things or sometimes where they're like, okay, or like have to calm themselves because,
Mm-hmm.
they're just doing a normal human thing, breathing, eating. They have the sniffles, they have to sniffle, parting their
Right.
lips a certain way, talking.
Yeah, I know about that. Yep.
Absolutely. Is that like one of your biggest triggers?
Oh
Like,
yeah, I can
just,
I can tell when somebody begins a sentence with the popping
mhm.
sound
Right, exactly, exactly.
or
Um,
ticking sound. But yeah, anyways.
yeah, yeah, I feel you. Um, yeah, so there are definitely moments where we see that people are just a little bit
Yeah.
frustrated, you know.
But yeah, like the best we can do at least is like you said, like get if we can get. I find that get sleep, eat well, at least that the amplitude or the ramp up to getting triggered by some of those little things is better. It's like
Hmm.
if we're exhausted and stuff, then I think those little the lip sounds, even those can blow into something out of
Yeah,
proportion. So
yeah,
um
exactly. Yeah,
well, we're getting close to an hour. I also want to
yeah.
just kind of you do a lot of creative stuff. I'm just curious if anything has been kind of inspired by Misophonia, or is it really just kind of just getting. I find when I do any kind of creative stuff that it kind of like um I don't know, it just kind of like provides some mental harmony where
Yeah.
I'm less willing, triggered. But I'm also working on creative stuff that has to do with Misophonia, so I'm just
Oh,
curious,
yay. That's great.
you know, what your passions are.
Yeah. I make
I think
music.
you play guitar of some kind of scene on your Instagram.
Yeah, I play bass, I play guitar, I play drums, I play piano.
Wow.
And I do make music. I've been making music for the past few years. I am just now starting to get it mixed and mastered,
Mm.
which is
Oh
very
yeah.
fun. And
Yes.
uh, it's really great to see things that you've made really come to life, become whole. Um, but nothing that I'm really pressing the gas on is misophonia related.
Hmm.
Um, for me personally, I feel like when I talk about misophonia too much, or I center it around my creativity a little too much, I am then hyper aware that I have it
Mm.
and it
Hmm.
affects my life in that way, So I try and like just write about other things.
Yes.
Um, I did have
Musikinesia.
some
No, just kidding. But
no,
yeah.
right, exactly, misokinesia. Thank you. But yeah, so hopefully I can release some stuff soon. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
I
I'd
don't
love to
know.
know about that and share it.
It's just
And
for fun.
yeah.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. I will be making music under the name Chrissy Taylor, Chrissy Taylor.
Okay. Okay.
So hey, when that
We
comes out,
will.
when that
Yeah.
comes out, I'll let you know.
Oh
You'll
yeah.
bump
I'll
it,
look
right?
for it. No, that's super cool. Super cool.
Right on. Thank
Well,
you.
yeah, I mean, we're about an hour. Like anything else you want to share with people
That flew by, dude.
about misophonia? I know it always does.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have notes here
Yeah.
of stuff. Let
Oh,
me.
please, yeah, feel free. You don't have to stop. There's no hard deadline or anything.
Oh, well, thank you. I did a lot of these things we had covered, but I just had some notes just for preparation,
Yeah.
or to see if there was anything else. Um, I would say we got through a lot of this. Um, oh my goodness. Oh, uh, I saw on your prompts in the very beginning, or not the very beginning, the on the email that
Right.
one of the maybe prompts that we talk about, because we mentioned support and getting support, maybe
Mm,
not getting support. Um, I think a lot of people with misophonia maybe have this experience where you have a hard time asking for what you need, or maybe a hard time asking people to accommodate, not just with misophonia, but with other things that come up. If
right.
if you have a certain need in a relationship or something, you might have difficulty asking for that. Um, and one thing that I had written down was under non-support. I made a T chart here. um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of them was something that I've heard other people say on this podcast, that they've had family members ask them, "How will you have a husband?" or "How will you have a wife? How will you
Yeah.
have a partner?" You know, and maybe they're hearing something like, "Damn, this must be really hard for you," or something, or this will pose a lot of challenges in your intimate relationships. But I suppose what we hear more so is, "How will anyone ever love me because of this?" Man, that that is a deep cut. If anyone's ever been told that, or maybe you or something of that notion, it
No,
definitely
it
impacts.
and it's it gets it yeah, it definitely impacts, and it's that's because it's on top of most of us. We're not out there to kind of police people's sounds. Like once we've become adults and we've kind of seen how it does affect the person on the other side. There's all this shame and guilt that we already have that kind of piles
Yeah,
on, right? And
totally.
so then to hear stuff like that, I mean, that's it. That just adds on to it. It's just like
Yeah,
because we're basically, it sounds like we're being accused of, hey, uh, you know, you're gonna obviously have misophonia, but you're probably gonna make the other person feel like shit too. Because that's
right.
kind of what we're sensitive to. We are sensitive to other people feeling like shit, like you did,
Yeah,
guys.
exactly. Exactly. Oh my
So
goodness. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. But I think also, as we near the end here, we're at 57.
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, it's all good.
there's, I know you said there's no harsh deadline or anything, but there's, in that same breath, there was an assignment in school, my senior year of high school, where our teacher, the first week, we were getting vulnerable, deep cuts first week of high school, or first week of senior year. He said, write about something that you struggle with daily, something that haunts you, that follows you,
You're
and we're
like,
all
all
looking at
right,
each
I'm
other
on
like,
this.
oh man, I
Yeah,
was hitting the paper with my pencil. I was so jazzed to be writing about misophonia. Um, I I do like to share it, honestly. I think
yeah,
the vulnerability connects people too. And a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people have this experience, which is such a beautiful experience, the experience that comes out of it, of developing not only hypersensitivity, but hyper empathy, or
yes,
understanding complex things, um, or, things that might not otherwise make sense to another person. But there was a portion of this poem, and I have it written down, um, where I won't read the whole thing because it's honestly, it's kind of bad, but there is a really nice part that I like to remember a lot.
yeah,
And it's about being asked that question, how will you have a husband? Um, I mentioned that in the beginning, but towards the end, it says, um, Say I end up on this futuristic beach, pondering on my past, where how will you have a husband is something never asked. I have not only a husband, but beautiful children I bore. I feel so lucky to hold them, teach them to walk along the shore. I have a story to tell, where my mind was in control, about when I had to yell, about when my mind took its toll. They are now non-judgmental towards those who struggled as I. They now view life's purpose as simple, to show compassion and love before they die. And I think that's something like, yes, that's something beautiful that comes out of misophonia, is being able to teach yourself that compassion and empathy to have for others. And I guess I don't know that my future goals are still aligned with my 17-year-old self. I'm 23 now. I had to think about that. And, you know, if I have kids, I have kids. But I know that if I have them, that will be a huge part of their experience growing up, is showing compassion and love before they die, you know?
That's beautiful. I take that lesson too. And so, and I try to think about that all the time. So yeah, it's a great, beautiful note to end on, you know, the kind of the positive lessons of misophonia and neurodivergence, where, you know, these things aren't necessarily all pure defects and evils that we need to, like, you know, smother. There are some things we can learn from them.
Absolutely. That's a great way of putting it.
Well, Taylor, or Chrissy Taylor, as the future rock star will be known as. Thanks. Thanks for all this. Thanks for coming on, and finally talk to you. And thanks for sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you again, Taylor. And definitely keep me posted on the music as it comes out. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a quick review or rating wherever you listen to this podcast. You can hit me up by email at hello@misophoniapodcast.com or go to the website, misophoniapodcast.com. It's even easier just to send a message on Instagram or Facebook, Misophonia Podcast, and on Twitter or X, it's Misophonia Show. Support the show by visiting the Patreon at patreon.com/Misophonia Podcast. The music, as always, is by Moby. And until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.